Hi, I'm Scott Whittle, and I'm the president of the Terra project. And the Terra project is something we've been working on for about 3.5 years, and that we finally launched, and we're very excited about. It's a project that lets users connect to their local nature and at the same time creates this powerful new conservation tool that's never been in existence before. So we're really excited to see what that can do. Terra is a device. I actually have one right here. This is what it looks like. And it gets put outside. So you buy one and put it outside, and it listens. It listens to audio, and it also actually listens to radio waves. So it'll pick up birds that have radio tags on them, as well as bird sounds. And it'll also pick up other animal sounds, which is really cool. So we actually are looking forward to being able to track not just birds, but all kinds of wildlife. So when you buy one, you set it up in your yard, you sit in your house, and you can actually listen to the outside in a continuous stream with a really high quality sound. So that's a really nice thing to have. For example, if your windows are closed, it's wintertime or allergy season, and you want to hear the birds or just the sort of natural sounds out there, you can do that. It also IDs everything that it hears. So that means that you'll learn about what's in your yard or what's going on sort of in the natural world around you without actually having to be outside all the time. It'll even ID birds as you're sleeping. So the birds that fly over your house, the little chips and chirps they make during migration, it'll actually identify those for you. So when you wake up in the morning, you can look back and see what was around. Maybe there was an owl hooting, or maybe there was a big flight. Um, it also connects to birds that have a radio transmitter on what we call the MODIS network, which is just a sort of standard for wildlife researchers that lets them track birds using radio transmitters that they attach to a band on their leg or their body. There's about 30,000 of those in the United States. And so if one of those birds happens to fly by within a mile or two of your Terra device, it'll actually pick that up and let you know. And you actually will be able to go back and look not only that you got it, but where it came from, who banded it, and get more information and potentially even follow it as it moves on its track, potentially maybe in migration or just around your area. At the same time, all that data that Terra is collecting, all those IDs and all those radio tags, it's actually sharing with a central database that we manage. It's actually managed through our partner nonprofit. And that database is going to be one of the largest databases of sounds ever collected. It actually has the potential to be maybe the largest community science project of all time, if you talk about in terms of data collected. And that's because each Terra is collecting maybe 2,000 to 3,000 bird identifications a day. And so if you multiply that by the 2,000 Terras that we've pre-sold before we even launched, and then the Terras we expect to sell, we're talking about literally millions of identifications every year. Those identifications can then be put into this database, and it'll actually help researchers track migration and track populations of birds and wildlife in a way they've never been able to do before. It's a dream for researchers to have a global, or at least a widespread, bioacoustic network, a bunch of microphones that are listening for them and helping them identify the animals and their behaviors. And that's exactly what this project is going to do. So we're really excited about the prospect of what this can contribute to conservation and preserving birds and wildlife, and also preserving the habitats that they use. Data is the most important weapon in the fight for conservation. Without data, governments and other agencies won't be able to act and preserve areas or pass regulations or laws to help animals. It also will make it harder for us to communicate with the general public about what's going on in the natural world. So all the data we can get is important. And this is a kind of data that actually most researchers don't have right now. It's a kind of database that we're creating that really hasn't existed yet. So it's going to add a whole new dimension of information to research projects and to conservation and preservation in a way that can protect wildlife and the natural world. And it can also help us fight things like global warming, where it'll basically give us a ton of information about how wildlife is responding to climate change, and also give us indicators of the degree that climate change is occurring in different places. Terra has been a very long time in the making. I think the concept for a large-scale bioacoustic network has been around for decades. And I think a lot of people who have worked with sound immediately realize the possibilities and the potentials there. So the foundation of it is this gift we get basically from birds and animals, which is the sounds they make. And what's so amazing about that is each animal and each bird makes unique sounds. And so we can actually identify each bird and animal by the sounds it makes. And that's kind of incredible when you consider that worldwide there's over 10,000 bird species. And yet even the little short chips they make, the little short sounds they make, those sounds are distinct enough that we can identify them to species almost all the time. So not only that, but they make those sounds a lot when they're migrating. Many of these birds migrate at night. So what people realized was if you sit outside and you get familiar with these sounds, if you have birds flying overhead at night, you can actually identify all the birds that are flying over. And in fact, that's exactly what people do. There are people who can do that. We have some of them here in Cape May. If you go out at night with them, they'll literally tell you every bird that's flying over, even though you can't see them. So the next step in that process was obviously, well, why don't we record the migration? And then we can go back and look at that recording and see all those birds flying over. And so that's exactly what we were working on probably 15 years ago when Mike was here, our co-founder, and we were doing a seminar on building microphones, and I hosted one of them at my house, and we built what we call bucket microphones. So this is a bucket microphone. This is version 0.0 of Terra, essentially. It comes complete with a Spider-Man plate and some cable and a microphone. And basically what you do is you put the mic sticking through this plate, and the plate acts as sort of like helps us amplify the sound a little bit. And then you pour some concrete in there. You wind up with something that's weighted so you can put it on your roof. And then you run a cable down into your house and attach it to a recorder. In the old days, they even used to attach them to VHS recorders. Or beta recorders. That's how old these are. And record those sounds, and then listen to it later and identify everything that flew over your house. The only problem with that process is you have to listen to it. And if you record 8 hours of nighttime flight calls, you have to listen to 8 hours of nighttime flight calls. And it also takes a lot of specialization. So the idea of automating this quickly became apparent. And I know Mike has been an advocate of creating a bioacoustic network for years and years and years. And so about 3.5 years ago, he and I sort of re-met on while we were out birding here in Cape May on Coral Avenue platform. And Mike said, you know, I've been wanting to do this Terra project where we actually build these devices and distribute them on a wide scale. And I said, yeah, well, we've been working on Bird ID by sound also on this app, and I'm very interested in that. And so we decided it was time to do it. So we made a partnership between he and I and Casey Alverson, our COO, and started the Terra project. And initially, actually, we were going to fund it through CTT, but then the pandemic hit. And so all of a sudden, CTT didn't have a lot of extra money because it had to buy a bunch of inventory to handle all those issues. So we said, you know what, let's crowdfund it. And what we realized was actually by crowdfunding it, we were actually solving several problems at once. One, we were getting the starter money to make Terra. But two, we were involving this community that we wanted to build and getting people actively involved in creating Terra and creating the Terra network. We also realized that no organization, no matter how big it is, can deploy 50,000, 100,000 microphones around the world and maintain them. It's just an almost impossible task. But if you give people a device that benefits them and also benefits this conservation tool, well, then they'll install it and maintain it for you, and we'll have this big crowdsourced network. So by using crowdsourcing and using this sort of hybridized for-profit, nonprofit model, Terra was born. And so we did our Kickstarter. It was very successful. We raised almost $300,000 in a month, and we got something like 1,400 pre-orders. By the time 3 years had passed, we had closer to 2,000 orders, and we were finally ready to actually produce this. Now, those intervening 3 years were rough. It was I learned uh, how to do basically everything that it takes to make a product. And believe me, there are a lot of things that have to be done to make a product. There's technical sides, there's supply side, there's marketing side, there's the app side, there's the sort of employee side. There's just a ton of things that have to be considered, and there's a ton of expense. And so we fought our way through it. And by the time we got here, we're finally in a place where we're actually able to distribute these to the people who backed us and then sell them to the public as well. So, starting all the way back in those old days where we had that Terra mic, that Terra 0.0 bucket mic sitting on the roof, we're finally at the place where we have this mass-produced device that people can use and just plug in and use their app, and it hopefully works flawlessly, and they can listen to and identify the birds without having to pour any concrete. So we're finally here. So that's exciting. One of the really great things about Terra is that it brings organizations together, and it's definitely a collaboration. It's a collaboration between the public and also between different organizations that have similar goals that we do in terms of conserving wildlife and protecting the environment. So one of our first partners and our most exciting partner is actually New Jersey Audubon. New Jersey Audubon has been a tremendous supporter of Terra. It's also been a tremendous supporter of conservation in general over the past decades. And because we're located here in Cape May, New Jersey, it's a natural fit for us to be connected with that organization and work together to accomplish some of the goals that we want to accomplish. So we're very proud to have them as our first retail partner. Actually, they had a pre-order done with us during our pre-order phase. And so now they actually have Terra devices for sale at Feather Edge Optics and at their stores, the New Jersey Audubon stores. So people can actually purchase them there. And we also are selling Terra online. So if you want to buy one through Terra itself, you can buy it at terralistens.com. Is where we're selling them. And we will have other partners in the future, but really I think New Jersey Audubon is our first and sort of closest to our heart. So we're really excited to be working with them. It's the Terra project in a nutshell. It's a big deal, and it's a big thing, and it does a lot of things, but in its core, what it's doing is it's bringing people together in a way that allows them to help conserve the nature around them and also connect to their local nature anytime they want. So that's what's so exciting about Terra to me, and I'm so excited that we're actually launching it now and shipping out devices.